The boy with a slightly mischievous face is none other than our protagonist, Isaac. Just 3 seconds ago, he downed an entire dozen bottles of milk laced with deadly poison. Yet he didn't feel a thing. In fact, rather than harming him, the poison surged through his body like fuel, filling him with an overwhelming surge of energy. And all of this? It could be traced back to his extraordinary nature. He was a saint by birth. To be more precise, Isaac wasn't originally from this world. He had once been an ordinary office worker on Earth, going by the name Kim Isaac. But in what seemed like a routine visit to the doctor, just a simple checkup for some minor symptoms he'd been experiencing, he received earth-shattering news. Even the doctor himself was stunned by the diagnosis. This is a disease that has never been recorded before. So, we'll be naming it after you. I'm truly sorry, but, at most, you have 6 months left to live. The doctor's voice carried deep regret, as if mourning the fate of a young man who should have had his whole life ahead of him. Only to be handed a death sentence so soon. The only silver lining, if it could even be called that, was that Isaac's name would live on through the discovery of this rare and fatal disease. But in reality, that was nothing more than a fancy way of saying, "Congratulations, your death warrant has been signed." A disease so obscure that even the doctor had no idea what the hell it was. How could something like that possibly have a cure? Isaac stood frozen, clutching the medical report tightly in his hands as he wandered aimlessly through the crowded streets. His body moved on autopilot, his mind utterly blank. Even when he bumped into people, he didn't react, he didn't care. His face was drained of color, his expression a mixture of disbelief and sheer terror. Countless thoughts flooded his mind. No way, I worked my ass off for this. I barely just got my life together. And now I'm just supposed to die? Just like that? He kept questioning himself, lost in the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. So lost, in fact, that he didn't notice the car speeding toward him from the distance. From behind, a stranger, someone who had noticed Isaac's trance-like state, reached out and shoved him hard, snapping him out of his daze. "Hey, move it. Do you even realize how dangerous that was?" The push was forceful, sending Isaac stumbling forward. Instinctively, he threw his hands out to break his fall, barely managing to keep himself from crashing onto the pavement. At that very moment, a small piece of paper slipped out of Isaac's coat pocket and fluttered to the ground. The moment his eyes landed on it, his already miserable mood took an even darker turn. It was as if this single piece of paper had sucked away the last remnants of his luck. Sigh, so this is it, a death sentence, he muttered bitterly. Why the hell is life so unfair? End of all days. It just had to be today, the day I actually won the damn lottery. I still want to live. I don't want to die yet. I swear, I'll be content with whatever I have. So please, please, please don't let me die. Isaac threw his head back and screamed into the sky, his voice filled with desperation as tears welled up in his eyes. And honestly, who could blame him? A man who had worked himself to the bone for years, finally catching a break with a life-changing lottery win, only to be told he had 6 months left to live? No one would take that news calmly. But in the end, no mysterious truck came barreling in to grant him a second chance at life. 6 months later, Isaac officially logged out of Earth's server. However, his story didn't end there. For some reason, Isaac regained consciousness, but in a completely different form. When he finally came to, he found himself inhabiting the body of a frail, lowly skeleton in an unfamiliar world. As he stared at his bony hands in disbelief, the full weight of his situation hit him like a truck that never arrived. Okay, sure, I did beg for my life, but that didn't mean I wanted to live like this, he mentally screamed. Did I really have to be reincarnated as some bald-ass skeleton? I can't even eat. I can't even take a piss in this goddamn body. Isaac's frustration boiled over as he took in his surroundings. He was standing inside a massive, eerie castle, its atmosphere drenched in an ominous crimson glow. The sky above burned blood red, and grotesque monsters filled the air, flying in chaotic swarms. Suddenly, without warning, a group of these creatures launched themselves at him from behind, their speed cutting through the wind like razor blades. Isaac's grip tightened around the massive sword in his hands. In one swift motion, he spun around and unleashed a flurry of deadly slashes, his blade slicing through the monsters with frightening precision. Their bodies were torn apart mid-air, shattered into countless pieces. Every swing of his sword carried the full force of his pent-up rage, as if he were taking out all his frustration on these wretched creatures. He made himself a promise right then and there. He would kill every last one of them. But before he could catch his breath, the ground beneath him trembled with the heavy thud of approaching footsteps. Isaac turned slightly, his sharp gaze locking onto the source of the sound. From the distance, a massive, towering figure was charging straight at him, a terrifying, hulking giant with a murderous glint in its eyes. And in the next instant, it swung its enormous hand straight at him, aiming to crush him in a single blow. The sheer force of the giant's strike was enough to make the ground tremble violently upon impact. However, our protagonist was swift, just in time. He leapt into the air, narrowly evading the devastating blow. And now, standing before him was the final target of this battle, the last obstacle in his path. Finally, this goddamn mess is over. Die. As he spoke, Isaac's sword erupted into bright, scorching flames. Without hesitation, he propelled himself forward like a lightning bolt, his body slicing through the air with deadly precision. His blazing sword cut clean through the giant's thick neck, severing its head from its body in one swift motion. The monstrous creature collapsed lifelessly onto the ground, its massive frame crashing down with a thunderous impact. Watching the scene unfold, Isaac exhaled deeply, a rare moment of relief washing over him. It's done. The suppression of the rebel army is complete. After being reincarnated, I started at the very bottom, as a lowly skeleton soldier. But from there, I evolved into something far greater. I became the undead king, Lich. I resurrected the demon raiders, a clan that had nearly been wiped out over the centuries. As he mused over his journey, Isaac scanned his surroundings, his gaze settling on the horde of monsters now looking at him with admiration. Their eyes gleamed with excitement, their voices rising in unison as they erupted into cheers. Our demon king, our immortal demon king. Hearing their fervent praise, Isaac's stark white skull seemed to blush slightly, despite its lack of skin. Well, yeah, I may be bald, but I'm the damn demon king now, he thought smugly to himself. However, before he could bask in his newfound glory, the chants from his subordinates took an unexpected turn. Isaac, our mighty king, even his name reflects his cunning and ruthless nature, our great Isaac. They gazed upon him with reverence, their expressions filled with awe and devotion. But of course, as someone who had received 12 years of formal education, there was absolutely no way Isaac could let this slide. These dumbasses, they got my name wrong. His real name was Isaac. But somehow, these brainless minions had taken to calling him Isaac. Sure, the pronunciation wasn't that different. But still, there was no way he was going to accept this nonsense. Hey, how many times do I have to say this? My name is Isaac. How many more times are you guys gonna make me repeat myself? It's Kim Isaac, you idiots. Sighing deeply, Isaac let out a self-deprecating chuckle. Whatever. These idiots will never get my name right anyway. Just take care of yourselves. Right now, I've got a reward to claim. My ultimate goal is to eat, take a dump, and become human again. With that thought lingering in his mind, he felt an overwhelming sense of anticipation. Time passed quickly. The scene shifted to a grand, luxurious temple. Seated high above were several individuals dressed in the finest noble attire. Meanwhile, Isaac, dragging the severed head of the massive monster he had just slain, approached them, his presence alone sending shockwaves of terror through the hall. Ignoring their stunned expressions, he spoke without hesitation. I've eliminated all those who stood against you. Our agreement still stands, doesn't it? According to the contract, you're supposed to turn me back into a human. For a brief moment, silence hung in the air as the nobles exchanged bewildered glances. Then, murmurs broke out among them. He actually wiped them all out? I thought it would take him at least 500 years. This is completely insane. I heard the high-ranking nobles formed a secret group to exploit him until he dropped dead. Isaac's ears weren't for decoration, he heard every single word. And at that moment, he had had enough. Oi, I can hear all of you. You know, why the hell are you talking so much? Didn't you all promise that if I defeated them, you'd turn me back into a human? I did exactly what you asked. You bastards. In response, a blonde-haired man with a cunning smirk finally spoke up. Well, that's quite impressive. But how about doing just one more thing for us? His tone was dripping with insincerity. And his fake smile only fueled the growing fury inside Isaac. He wasn't stupid. He had already seen through their schemes from the very beginning. And yet, because he so desperately wanted to reclaim his humanity, he had gritted his teeth and played along. But now, at this moment, it was crystal clear. These bastards had no intention of keeping their promise. They were planning to use him until there was nothing left. And Isaac had just reached his breaking point. Isaac's voice thundered through the grand hall, his rage manifesting in a way that could no longer be ignored. Even if I'm just a skeleton, you bastards should know your damn limits. Fuck this. What gives you the right to make me your slave? His skeletal jaw clenched as flames of pure fury ignited within his empty eye sockets. The raw anger surging inside him was no longer just a feeling, it was a tangible force. Shaking the ground beneath his feet, cracks splintered across the marble floor as an oppressive aura filled the space. Oi, you damn bastards, you've been forcing me to do all your dirty work, while knowing full well you have no fucking clue how to turn me back into a human. Don't you? A shocked gasp escaped from a green-haired woman standing nearby. She immediately turned to the blonde noble beside her, whispering in alarm, "He figured it out." The blonde man's face twisted into an uneasy grimace as he muttered back. Didn't I say from the start that we shouldn't use him? Why the hell did we even make a deal with a lunatic like this? But before anyone could utter another word, Isaac's voice boomed once more, cutting through their hushed panic like a blade. Is that all you bastards can say? Besides your damn summoning spells, you can't create or destroy anything, can you? A sinister laugh rumbled in his throat as he took a step forward. The energy radiating from his body intensified, distorting the very air around him like a pressure cooker about to explode. Because I'm an undead, I've already lost the right to live like a human. But if you worthless gods can't even uphold a single promise, if you can't turn me back into a person. His aura surged to new heights, an invisible force pressing down on the divine beings seated before him. A rare sight indeed. It wasn't every day that the so-called almighty gods trembled before something they had once considered beneath them. Finally, panic set in. Wait, just give us more time, one of them blurted out. If you agree to complete just a few more tasks for us. Then, Isaac's gaze turned razor sharp. And with those words, any remaining chance of negotiation shattered into dust. More tasks? More bullshit excuses? Hey, you really think you can squeeze any more out of me? A cold chuckle escaped his bony lips before it erupted into full-blown laughter, wild, unhinged, and filled with murderous intent. You broke your promise. Now you'll pay the price. I'll turn all of you into skeletons like me. Ha ha ha. Throwing both hands toward the sky, Isaac began channeling an unfathomable power. The sheer force of it warped the atmosphere, making even the gods struggle for breath. The hall trembled, the divine trembled, and the one they had so foolishly tried to manipulate? He was about to make them regret it. However, gods were still gods. There was no way they would just sit back and accept their fate so easily. The energy gathering in Isaac's palm had barely lasted a few seconds before it suddenly vanished. As if a flame had been doused with ice-cold water. The smirk on his face disappeared along with it. Huh? What the hell? Why did my magic just disappear? And why the hell can't I move? Isaac muttered in shock, trying to command his own body. But it was completely useless. To answer his question, a man with fiery orange hair stepped forward. A smug grin tugging at his lips. Don't even bother, he sneered. Anyone whose name I carve onto this thing can't move a muscle. As he spoke, he extended his palm, revealing a strange insect sitting in the center of his hand. Etched into its shell was the name, Isaac. At the same time, the rest of the gods stepped up behind him, forming a unified front as they prepared to deliver their judgment. Destruction, one of them intoned, their voice heavy with condescension. Long ago, this high-level holy relic was used to seal away disasters like you. And yet, a lowly demon such as yourself dared to defy us? You should have been grateful to serve us. Another sneered. But now? Enjoy your pathetic life as a worm. Hearing those words, Isaac's skull, quite literally, turned red with fury. His entire skeletal frame trembling with barely contained rage. Hey, at the very least, couldn't you have chosen a worm with more hair? He snapped irritably. Hearing this, the orange-haired man scoffed and shook his head in mock pity. Still hung up on hair? Huh? You really are a stupid demon. But just as he finished speaking, the insect in his palm suddenly began to glow, a blinding, unnatural light bursting from its tiny form. His expression instantly twisted into one of shock and alarm. What? Panicked, he snapped his head toward Isaac, as if he'd just realized something. And what he saw sent a chill down his spine. A smug, triumphant grin stretched across the skeletal warrior's face. Hey, you absolute morons. Isaac chuckled darkly. If you were gonna pull a stunt like this, you should have done it before I caught on. Like hell I'm letting myself turn into some disgusting worm. I'd rather die first. So all of you. He threw his head back and cackled. Go eat shit. And just like that, with his final farewell, Isaac's entire body erupted into an overwhelming surge of energy, transforming him into a living bomb. The explosion was so powerful that the grand hall itself seemed on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, everyone present was a god, so while they were thrown into chaos, none of them were completely obliterated alongside him. That lunatic, did he really just kill himself? He actually went through with it. He's insane, the group muttered in shock, their voices tinged with disbelief. On the other side of the wreckage, the blonde-haired god hurried over to the red-haired one, his face clouded with urgency. The ritual, it went as planned, right? He demanded, his voice thick with concern. The red-haired god glanced down at the trembling insect before him, then nodded firmly. The ritual was completed. That means the demon king's soul has been sealed away. Hearing this, the surrounding gods finally let out a collective sigh of relief, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Thank the heavens. That means we'll be able to reclaim our power now. Right? Exactly. Every time the demon king disappears, we always receive a surge of strength. But before they could revel in their victory, the blonde-haired god shot them a sharp glare, his voice carrying a warning. Don't get careless. It's far too soon to be celebrating. Who knows when the next catastrophe will arise? He crossed his arms and continued, his tone resolute. We need to create the perfect vessel for a saint in the human world and wipe out the demon race once and for all. Beside him, the red-haired god turned toward his companion, eyeing him with slight concern. Are you all right? You used up quite a bit of power back there. The blonde god simply waved him off. No need to worry. Our priority now is to find a suitable soul to place into the saint's body. As for that arrogant skeletal demon king, he cast a smug glance at the trembling insect. He'll remain trapped inside this worm for all eternity. And when he wakes up, I'll make sure he learns his place. A wicked smirk curled on his lips, one befitting a true villain. Yet, none of them realized the truth. The soul of our protagonist was never sealed inside that insect to begin with. Returning to Isaac's thoughts at this moment, he found himself surrounded by endless darkness. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Stay calm. I have to stay calm. I can't believe I got tricked by those damn gods. Did I really just turn into another mindless skeleton? No, wait, why is it so bright? Who would have thought? I actually turned into a worm? And I don't even have hands to cover my eyes? Wait a minute, what's this warm, soft sensation? Hold on, do I have hands? This is a human body? I've become human again? But why? Those bastards hate me more than anything. Why would they do this? No way, don't tell me their sealing ritual failed? Isaac silently speculated, but before he could piece things together, a voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. Oh my, Saint, the saint is awake. You were sleeping so peacefully. Why have you woken up so soon? A cheerful voice came from a maid standing beside him, her face beaming with joy. Nearby, a male servant was preparing a bottle of milk and added, "It would have been better if he had slept a little longer. Don't you think?" Isaac, still dazed, struggled to grasp what was happening. Who are these people? Caretakers? Am I really human now? Unaware of his inner turmoil, the man in front of him finished preparing the bottle and approached. However, there was something off about both of them, something unsettling in their demeanor that sent an inexplicable chill down Isaac's spine. Well, whether we like it or not, we have to finish our job. Saint, sorry for waking you up just to send you back to sleep again. May you rest in eternal peace. Both servants spoke in an eerily polite yet ominous tone. Isaac's body stiffened as realization struck him like a lightning bolt. No, I just died not long ago. And now I have to die again? He screamed internally, horror creeping up his spine. It seemed like his rotten luck still refused to let him go. Sorry, oh great saint, but it's time for you to rest in eternal slumber. The servant's voice dripped with malice. His face twisted in a sly smirk. Isaac didn't need to think twice. These people were obviously scheming to get rid of him. Without hesitation, the servant tightened his grip on the milk bottle and thrust it toward Isaac's mouth. But Isaac wasn't stupid enough to just drink it blindly. The moment he saw the bottle coming, he immediately turned his head to the side, firmly refusing to open his mouth even the slightest bit. His silent resistance made the servant visibly nervous. Why won't he drink it? He muttered, confused. Hearing that, Isaac couldn't help but curse him in his mind. Are you an idiot? Do you think I just gulped down some suspicious crap like that? Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to become human again? But then, something nagged at him. Wait, why did I even become human in the first place? That question lingered in his thoughts, until the answer practically fell into his lap. The other servant, a woman, let out an exasperated sigh. Why won't you just act like a normal baby and drink it already? That way, you can just die, you can rest peacefully, right, Lord Isaac? Isaac? Hearing that name sent a jolt through Isaac. He whipped his head around to stare at them. Did that guy just call me Isaac? In that instant, everything clicked. So instead of sealing me using my real name, Isaac, they got my name wrong and called me Isaac instead? That's why the seal didn't work on me. And on top of that, I reincarnated into a body with the same name? Those pompous gods, acting all high and mighty. Yet they screwed up something this important? The realization was so ridiculous that Isaac couldn't hold back. He burst into laughter, his tiny baby face contorted in pure amusement. But just as he was howling with glee, the male servant seized the opportunity and shoved the entire milk bottle straight into Isaac's mouth. Isaac choked instantly, his little body thrashing wildly as he struggled against the force feeding. What the hell? He was this strong as a newborn? The male servant, now visibly sweating, yelled for backup. Help me, why is this baby so damn strong? Back to Isaac's perspective, at the end of the day, he was still just a newborn. There was no way he could overpower two fully grown adults. His tiny face had turned completely purple, his whole body trembling as he mentally cursed his miserable fate. Wait, is this vegetable juice? What the hell? Are they trying to assassinate me with this disgusting sludge? I fought so damn hard just to come back to life. And now they want to kill me with this? As if that wasn't bad enough. Something felt off. There was something seriously weird happening inside his body. Isaac had no time to process it, though, because at that very moment, scene change. The Holy Kingdom of Hela. Central Eastern Temple. Inside the grand corridor of the temple, an old man dressed in the robes of a bishop strode forward with calm, measured steps. Then, as if a thought had suddenly crossed his mind, a sinister smile crept across his face. He muttered under his breath, by now, that child should be dead for good. But just as his self-satisfaction reached its peak, a cold, commanding voice rang out from ahead. You seem pleased with yourself, Bishop. The bishop flinched slightly before turning toward the speaker. Standing before him was a man with golden hair, dressed in the refined garments of an aristocrat. His stern face exuded an aura of absolute authority, making it painfully clear that he was someone of the highest status. And indeed, this was Alexander Heathcliff Hela, Emperor of the Holy Kingdom. The moment the emperor appeared, the group of priests nearby immediately bowed their heads in unison. Glory to the Son of the Empire. Alexander merely gave a small nod in acknowledgement before addressing the bishop. What's a bishop doing here? The bishop, regaining his composure, forced a smile and responded with practiced ease. The Joshua family has come to pay their respects to the saint candidate. Your Majesty, after all, you know as well as I do that the Holy See would never neglect the saint. Upon hearing this, a smirk of pure mockery flashed across Alexander's face. His piercing gaze seemed to cut straight through the bishop's words. I see. Since this concerns the saint, you decided to come in person. That makes sense. Then, with an unmistakable hint of sarcasm, he added, after all, if anything were to happen to the saint once he's in the Holy See's hands, well, that would be quite unfortunate, wouldn't it? His blatant ridicule was impossible to ignore. The bishop's face twitched. For a brief moment, his fake smile faltered, before he quickly recovered with an awkward chuckle. Ha ha, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Your Majesty. The moment those words left his lips, a sudden scream echoed through the hallway. Young master, the young master has. The moment he heard that cry, the old bishop's lips curled into a wicked smile, as if his plan had finally come to fruition. Without hesitation, everyone rushed toward the source of the commotion. Isaac's room. As soon as the doors were flung open, Emperor Alexander strode in, his voice sharp with urgency. What the hell happened? Inside the room, a group of servants stood huddled together, their gazes fixed on the center of the scene. One of the maids turned around, her face practically glowing with excitement. The young master is just too adorable. Look at that chubby little belly of his. He's so cute I can't stand it. He ate so well, too. He really is an angel. Following their eyes, Alexander spotted Isaac. The little boy was lying there, giggling happily while rubbing his round, bloated tummy in absolute bliss. Look, he drank all 15 bottles of that nasty vegetable juice all by himself, another servant chimed in proudly. Meanwhile, back at the entrance, the old bishop finally arrived. Whether it was because of his old age or because he had already predicted the outcome, he had been trailing behind the rest. But the second he caught wind of what the servants were saying, he immediately shoved his way forward, his eyes locking onto Isaac like he was staring at some kind of monster. Impossible. How is he still alive? Not only that, but he had drunk all of it? That wasn't just some ordinary vegetable juice. The bishop's twisted, wrinkled face contorted even further in horror. His assassination attempt had completely failed. But to understand how this happened, we have to rewind just a few minutes. When Isaac first felt that strange sensation inside his body, the moment he processed the taste of the liquid being forced into his mouth, realization struck him like lightning. Wait a second, this is Saintbane, a lethal poison designed to completely eradicate the holy power of priests. It doesn't kill immediately, but with a high enough dose, death is inevitable. But then, a devious grin formed on his tiny lips. Unless, of course, you're someone like me. Isaac's crimson eyes gleamed with delight as he came to a startling realization. This poison, it can be converted into the demonic mana of the demon clan. Which means, for a former demon king like me, this is nothing short of a divine gift. He could hardly believe his luck. They just handed me a demon. A substance that I can directly absorb and convert into raw power? These idiots. With that, his mind was made up. He was going to chug every last drop of this so-called deadly poison. Thinking this, Isaac downed the entire bottle of milk in one go. Then, turning toward the two scheming servants, he furiously screamed, "Give me more! All of it! Bring it here!" Of course, the two servants had no idea what Isaac was actually saying. The only thing they heard was a series of angry baby noises. This left them a bit puzzled. Is he asking for more? One of them muttered. Weird. Why do I feel like I can actually understand what he's saying? Without hesitation, the male servant quickly went to prepare another bottle of the poisoned milk and eagerly fed it to Isaac. The more you drink, the happier we are, young master. After all, this poison, vegetable juice, doesn't take effect immediately. So drink up. On the other side, Isaac eagerly reached out and latched onto the bottle as if it were a divine gift. He even gave the servant a big thumbs up in appreciation. Excellent. For the sake of my victory, I will absorb every last drop of this mana. I don't know who spiked this milk, but you did a great job. Well done. However, Isaac had no time to just sit here and enjoy his meal. He had a far more important task ahead. He needed to leave the physical world and dive deep into his subconscious. All the way to the source realm, the place where mana cores were created. At least I'm safe here, he thought, closing his eyes. With that, Isaac began his descent into his spiritual world. The surrounding scenery resembled an enormous lake, and Isaac found himself holding his breath as he swam deeper and deeper. Finally, upon reaching the lake bed, he got to work, rebuilding his mana core. Alright, time to focus. Isaac concentrated, gathering the vast amount of mana he had just absorbed and channeling it into a single point. He needed a fully formed mana core to use magic, so if he wanted to cast spells in the future, this step was absolutely necessary. As he focused, the energy inside him condensed into a brilliant, golden sphere, glowing like a miniature sun. But then, something went horribly wrong, whether it was an error in the condensation process or some unexpected instability. The energy sphere suddenly became wildly unstable, pulsing with uncontrollable power. Isaac's eyes went wide in sheer terror. Oh, crap, is this a mana explosion? He let out a scream, his face going pale. In that moment, he could almost see his ancestors standing on the other side of the river, waving him over. And then, for some inexplicable reason, the massive energy sphere suddenly calmed down. The wild, chaotic surge of mana from earlier had completely vanished, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Isaac instinctively narrowed his eyes, observing the phenomenon before him. His tiny face was filled with shock and disbelief. Wait a minute, this is a normal mana core usually manifested in one of three colors. But this one was white. No, the color isn't the issue here. The real problem is, I didn't even finish properly condensing my mana into this thing yet. So what in the world is this energy? This was far beyond anything he had anticipated. Just how many blessings have been crammed into this baby's body? If he nurtured this power correctly, he wouldn't just become strong, he could turn into a monster beyond his own imagination. With that thought, Isaac reached out his tiny hand toward the colossal energy sphere. Then, with a firm and deliberate motion, he etched the word, survive, onto it. To him, survival was everything. That desperate will to live had been seared into his very soul. It was the core of his existence, the driving force behind why he became the skeleton demon king in his past life. That sheer hunger for survival had granted him unique buffs and original skills. And now, he had successfully inherited the powerful magic hidden within this body. Isaac's mind buzzed with excitement over his new reality. Meanwhile, in the real world, the two sinister servants glanced at the unmoving baby, his small body seemingly deep in slumber. Is he dead yet? The male servant muttered. Check again, the female one reminded him, just as they were about to reach out. Wham! Isaac's tiny hand shot into the air. Both of them screamed in shock, their faces going pale. The cowardly male servant even burst into tears on the spot. Oh God, he's still alive. Unbothered by their reaction, Isaac simply bellowed at the top of his lungs. Another bottle. Stronger dosage this time. Back in reality, seeing Isaac's adorable little figure still resting peacefully in the crib, Emperor Alexander finally let out a sigh of relief. Phew, thank goodness. Nothing happened. Down below, our protagonist clearly heard those words, and couldn't help but scoff in his mind. Oh, sure, I was just almost assassinated. No big deal. As he thought this, Isaac's gaze casually swept across the room, until it landed on the bishop. The old man was staring daggers at him, his face twisted with barely contained hostility, as if he were looking at his mortal enemy. Huh? What's with that look? Is he mad because I ate too much or something? No, now wasn't the time to draw suspicion. I need to act clueless. Smile. Just smile and act like a dumb baby. With that in mind, Isaac flashed the biggest, most innocent grin he could muster. But the more he smiled, the more distorted the bishop's face became. The old man was practically trembling with fury, cursing Isaac relentlessly in his mind. What the actual fuck is wrong with this brat? After drinking that much poison, he should be puking blood and dropping dead, not sitting there grinning at me like an idiot. Just thinking about it made the bishop's entire body shake with rage. A few days earlier, at the Holy See, inside a luxurious chamber, a man slammed his fist down in rage as he received news from the old bishop. Whoever becomes the saint will rule the holy nation. What a joke. Every damn noble is convinced their child is the saint, even the lowest of families. Behind him, the old hound-like bishop stood up, thumped his chest, and reassured him with absolute certainty. Rest assured, my lord, every other saint candidate has already been dealt with. Hearing this, the mysterious man cracked a satisfied smile. But almost immediately, his expression darkened as if he'd just remembered something unpleasant. Of course, but I've heard some rather disturbing rumors. There's supposedly a saint candidate from the Joshua family? The mere mention of that name made the man's grip tighten around his metal wine goblet, crushing it out of sheer anger. The Joshua family is the emperor's right hand. If Isaac becomes the saint, it'll be a massive threat to my future plans. The bishop fully understood this concern, but the Joshua family was terrifyingly powerful, and he wouldn't dare lay a finger on Isaac himself. But we can't touch them, the old bishop muttered hesitantly. The mysterious man clearly wasn't expecting much from the bishop anyway. With a furious scowl, he hurled the crushed goblet to the floor and spoke in a sharp, commanding tone. That brat will be dead before you even arrive. Your only job is to confirm it. I've already arranged everything. The saint must come from House Barrett. This scheming and ruthless man was none other than Hire Barrett, the cardinal and head of the Barrett family. Back in the present, the old bishop looked at Isaac, who was still very much alive and well, and his faith in Hire's words wavered for the first time. Did that bastard set me up? He swore the boy would be dead. And yet, here he is, grinning like a damn fool. How the hell is this even possible? Unaware of the sinister thoughts swirling inside the bishop's head, the emperor gently ran his hand over Isaac's tiny face and nodded in amusement. HMPH. Interesting. This shimmering golden hair, it's the same color as the founder of the holy nation. Isn't it, bishop? The old bishop laughed awkwardly, trying to mask his unease. Ha, your majesty. How could you say something like that? Meanwhile, Isaac, still piecing things together, realized that the man in front of him was most likely the emperor. But before he could fully process that, Alexander's next words nearly made him drop the poisoned milk bottle in his hands. In fact, I'd say the boy resembles the gods more than the current pope does. As expected of the last saint candidate, he folded his arms with a bright smile. Isaac, on the other hand, was completely shaken. Wait, what? I'm a candidate for saint? So that's why those guys kept calling me saint this and saint that. Off to the side, the old bishop's face stiffened as well. Shit, the emperor is already showing favoritism toward him. This can't continue. With that thought, he quickly spoke up in an attempt to interfere. Your Majesty, please allow me to take care of this child. The emperor frowned, clearly displeased, and turned to him with a questioning look. Huh? And why is that? The bishop hurriedly scrambled for excuses. There's something off about him. No infant could possibly drink that much vegetable juice. He was desperately trying to claim that Isaac was abnormal and needed to be investigated. But the emperor wasn't an idiot. He might not have solid evidence, but he could already sense that House Barrett was up to something shady. So he immediately rejected the request. Huh? A saint candidate drinking something from the church is suspicious. How does that make sense? The bishop gritted his teeth but refused to give up. But we can't be certain yet. Your Majesty, please entrust the child to me. Before he could finish his plea, Alexander shut him down again. The Joshua family will be sending someone. They'll handle this instead. From Isaac's perspective, the fact that he was a saint candidate felt utterly bizarre. Me? A demon king, as a saint candidate? How the hell did this happen? Lost in thought, he suddenly let out a small burp, accidentally exhaling a puff of purple mana. His eyes widened in horror, and he slapped his tiny hands over his mouth. Shit, that was dark mana I haven't fully digested yet. Did anyone see that? Unfortunately for him, the old bishop had the nose of a bloodhound. Even though the moment had been brief, he immediately sensed the dark energy and whipped his head toward Isaac. Your Majesty, I just felt a trace of darkness coming from this child. This is highly suspicious. As he spoke, his face lit up with excitement. For so long, he'd been struggling to find an excuse to deal with Isaac. And now, out of nowhere, a perfectly legitimate reason had just fallen into his lap. Seeing the bishop's smug expression, cold sweat dripped down Isaac's tiny face. His little hands clenched the bedsheets tightly as his mind raced in panic. Shit, did he notice something? Unaware of Isaac's thoughts, the bishop continued badmouthing him. This child may be a failed candidate, just a defective one with excess mana. I must report this to the inquisitors immediately. Hearing this, Alexander's face darkened. Of course, there was no way in hell he'd allow that. The hell? How dare you say such nonsense about a valuable saint candidate? He glared at the bishop. However, the bishop had already prepared his counter. Oh, no need to worry, Your Majesty, he smirked. The Pope has already set his sights on House Barrett's candidate to be the next saint. At those words, Alexander's jaw tightened. His teeth clenched as he cursed inwardly. So, he wants a child from his own damn family to be saint. Huh? Unbelievable. How shameless can they get? Meanwhile, Isaac's tiny fists trembled. So that's why they want me dead? The bishop didn't stop there. He stepped forward, lifted Isaac into his arms, and gave a direct order. Summon the inquisitors, at once. However, before anyone could move, Alexander's voice rang out, cold and firm. Hold it right there. The bishop froze. The emperor narrowed his eyes. House Joshua is one of the empire's closest allies. He crossed his arms. As emperor, I will decide how this child is to be judged. The bishop responded with a cold nod. I understand, Your Majesty. However, he paused briefly before flashing a knowing smile. His Holiness has also stated that the Crown Prince's blessing will only be granted after the Holy One has been chosen. That was nothing short of a blatant threat. The expression on Emperor Alexander's face darkened immediately. His fingers curled into a tight fist as realization struck him. If he didn't support the child the Pope had chosen, then that man would withhold the blessing from the Crown Prince. Alexander's voice was sharp as he asked, "Is this the will of the Church?" Switching back to Isaac's perspective, seeing his uncle, the Emperor, being backed into a corner, he felt a chill crawl up his spine. Once again, his life was hanging by a thread. These cheap bastards, this is bad. If they find out who I really am, I'm screwed. Meanwhile, the bishop pressed on, trying to reassure Alexander. If Your Majesty is uncertain, we can conduct a test right now. With my exorcism powers, if the child is human, he will be completely fine. However, if he is a demon, then he will instantly. He didn't even get to finish his sentence. In that split second, Isaac's tiny hand shot out, grabbing the baby bottle next to him, channeling a small amount of energy into it to enhance its power. He swung it with all his might. Smack! The bottle slammed directly into the bishop's face. The impact was so strong that he spat out blood, and one of his teeth flew out, never to return to its rightful place. Even after landing that brutal hit, Isaac played the part of an innocent baby. While on the inside, he was mentally cursing the old bastard's entire bloodline. That arrogant piece of shit. Screw it, I'll just act like a clueless infant. The bishop was in complete shock. The pain was so intense that he was momentarily speechless. How could a newborn hit him so hard with a baby bottle of all things? The surrounding nobles stared in disbelief, whispering among themselves. Wait a minute, that light, was that holy energy? That must mean, this child is undoubtedly the Holy One. Meanwhile, Isaac wasn't done yet. Once again, he infused more energy into the baby bottle, causing it to glow faintly with a golden light. Then, with zero hesitation, smack, this time, he swung the bottle straight into the bishop's other cheek. His tiny hands moved like a machine, striking the bishop left and right, over and over, giving him no chance to defend himself. Let's see what you can do now, you bastard. Seeing the spectacle before them, the emperor and his entourage didn't even try to stop it. In fact, they simply stood off to the side, watching with delight. It's so bright, someone exclaimed. Meanwhile, Isaac felt like he hadn't hit hard enough yet. His eyes gleamed mischievously as he channeled even more magic into the bottle. That's it, I'll use enhancement magic to make this bottle even tougher, and just keep swinging like an innocent little baby with no idea what he's doing. Isaac snickered inwardly. How's that, you bastard? After taking so many earth-shattering hits, the old bishop felt like he needed immediate reconstructive surgery. His body wobbled, he was barely able to stand, making some of the bystanders a little concerned. The bishop is completely overwhelmed by His Holiness's divine power, someone murmured. Even Isaac was a little surprised. He looked at the holy energy radiating from the baby bottle and furrowed his brows. Huh? What's going on? It was weak, but every time he used dark mana, a faint trace of holy mana followed along. But these two forces were supposed to be completely opposite. How the hell am I using them together? There was only one possible explanation. It has to be because of that white mana core inside me. Before the bishop could fully regain his senses, his trembling, wrinkled hands shot forward. With a face twisted in rage and humiliation, he ripped the baby bottle from Isaac's grasp and hurled it to the ground. His voice boomed with fanaticism as he pointed a shaking finger at the child. I swear upon everything I have, this child is a heretic. We must begin the exorcism immediately. Switching back to Isaac's perspective. At this point, the old man's relentless efforts to sabotage him at every turn had pushed his patience to its absolute limit. This stubborn old bastard. Alright, fine, I didn't want to do this. But it looks like you've got something interesting on you. With that thought, Isaac's tiny hands slipped inside the bishop's robe. And when he pulled them back out, he was holding a fully bandaged arm, wrapped tightly in a golden chain. The sinister aura radiating from the object was so unmistakable that even an idiot could tell. This was bad news. It was the severed remnant of a high-ranking demon, a forbidden artifact capable of absorbing the power of its own kind. The bishop's eyes went blank as he stared at the bandaged arm in Isaac's hands. He had kept it on him at all times, just in case he needed protection from demons. But now, how the hell did this brat even know about it? Isaac's lips curled into a mischievous grin. Then, without hesitation, he hurled the arm forward. Take a good look, you bastard. If you keep messing with me, don't blame me for what happens next. With that, he snapped his fingers, and in the very next moment, a violent surge of deep purple energy erupted from the severed limb. In an instant, the energy coalesced into a shadowy figure, vaguely resembling a human shape. The emperor's guards reacted immediately. Their hands flew to their swords, gripping them tightly. A demon? But why? They shouted in alarm. The sudden appearance of a demon inside the temple sent Emperor Alexander into a fury. He whipped his head around and glared at the bishop. Bishop Masa Barrett, explain yourself at once. A demon, inside the Temple of the Stars? Have you lost your mind? Masa, caught off guard, immediately shoved Isaac forward, desperately trying to shift all the blame onto him. Can't you see, Your Majesty? This child just pulled out a demonic relic. But Alexander wasn't buying it. Demonic relics are linked to the spirits of the dead. There's no way a mere object could instantly summon a demon. Then, with a commanding voice, he turned to his knights. All of you, listen up. Protect the child from both the demon and the bishop." "Yes, Your Majesty." The knights responded in unison and charged forward. One of the knights swiftly reached out, yanked Isaac out of Masa's grasp, and held him securely. Masa stood there, dumbfounded. Huh? What the hell is going on? Meanwhile, Isaac grinned wickedly, eagerly anticipating what would happen next. "Serves you right, you scheming bastard. Let's see just how strong you really are." At the same time, Isaac glanced toward the shadowy demon, which was now surrounded by knights, their swords pressed against its throat. But then, the moment its glowing eyes locked onto Isaac, something snapped. With an ear-piercing shriek, the demon went berserk. Kill the Holy One. The Holy One must die." With an explosive burst of strength, it shattered the knight's restraints and lunged straight at Isaac. Seeing this, the knight holding Isaac instantly shielded him, covering his face and retreating backward. The other knights rushed forward to intercept the demon. "Protect the young master," they shouted as they charged in. Meanwhile, Isaac, utterly bewildered, stared at the chaotic scene. "What the hell is wrong with it? I'm the one who brought it back. So why is it attacking me?" But then, brushing off his concerns, he reassured himself. "Whatever. The holy knights are here. I'll be fine." That thought, however, didn't last 2 seconds, because right before his eyes, a knight was sent flying across the room, slammed into the wall, and collapsed on the floor, motionless. Isaac's confidence shattered instantly. Wait a damn minute, are these guys even real holy knights? Up ahead, the wraith continued its relentless rampage, slashing and howling. "Kill the Holy One, save the imprisoned king." The more it spoke, the stronger it seemed to become, effortlessly sending royal guards flying like ragdolls. The knight holding Isaac turned pale with fear. Instinctively, he clutched the boy so tightly that Isaac's face was nearly squashed out of shape. Isaac, watching the so-called knights get tossed around like children, quickly realized he couldn't rely on them. If no one else could stop this thing, he'd have to do it himself. "Alright, first, I just need to hold it back. No one's going to notice my mana in the middle of this chaos anyway. Right? Why are there so many people trying to kill me in this life? I just saved you, and now you're coming after me. You ungrateful little demon?" With that, Isaac began to release the oppressive aura of the Demon King. The moment the wraith felt it, its expression froze in shock. It finally realized, standing before it was none other than the Demon King himself. But before it could even react, a blinding burst of holy light erupted from Isaac's small body. The wraith screeched in agony as the light scorched its shadowy form, sizzling like fire against dry parchment. It had no way to resist. With no other option, the wraith instantly transformed into a streak of dark energy and shot toward the exit, desperately trying to flee. "Hey, that thing's getting away," someone shouted. But soon, all attention shifted back to Isaac, the child who had just repelled a high-ranking wraith using nothing but his own power. That was holy power, wasn't it? Lord Isaac just defeated a high-level demon. Unbelievable. He's so young. As expected of the young master. Ignoring the flood of praise, Isaac simply stared at his own small hands, which were still glowing with pure, radiant light. What the hell is this? That was really holy power? But how'd I even have it? And now it's gone? This doesn't make any sense. Did this weird body of mine just convert my mana into holy power? Wait, if that's true, then how am I supposed to absorb dark mana? There's barely any dark mana left in this so-called holy kingdom. Grinding his teeth, Isaac clenched his fists, already dreading the energy crisis he might face in the future. At the same time, behind him, the other knights quickly restrained Bishop Masa, causing the old man to go completely berserk, screaming like a rabid dog. "Let me go, you fools! That brat is a heretic. He used the power of demons. How dare a demon set foot in the Holy Kingdom? Your Majesty, let me prove it. I will perform an exorcism ritual to expose his true nature," he roared. His outburst was met with an icy response from Emperor Alexander. "That's enough, Bishop." Alexander's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You dare accuse an innocent Holy One candidate of heresy? You even unleashed a high-level demon right before the eyes of the royal holy knights. I don't care if you're from the Holy See, don't expect me to let this slide." Hearing these words, Masa ground his teeth so hard it was audible. The seed of doubt has already been planted in the emperor's mind. He'll soon uncover the spy. If that happens, it will be disastrous for the Holy See. Even if it costs me my life, I must protect my family. At the very least, I have to eliminate the Holy One candidate. With this resolve, even while bound, Masa managed to move his fingers just enough to trace a magic circle in the air. In an instant, a fearsome wolf with blood-red eyes materialized before him. Before Masa could even give an order, the beast lunged straight at Isaac, eager to tear him apart. Seeing this, cold sweat dripped down the knight's face, while Isaac simply let out a tired sigh. This stubborn old man, so he's finally dropped the act. Huh? Did he really think he could kill me with such a weak attack? Isaac prepared to retaliate with his own magic, only to realize he had completely run out of mana. Meanwhile, the massive wolf flashed forward in an instant, its enormous jaws snapping shut, aiming to end Isaac's life in a single, deadly bite. But the King of Hell wasn't ready to add Isaac to his registry just yet. At the most critical moment, from a distance, a wave of energy streaked through the air, slamming directly into the massive wolf's neck. The beast let out an agonizing howl as it staggered backward. Isaac's eyes widened in shock. He instantly turned toward the source of the attack. "How dare you lay a hand on a descendant of the Joshua family?" A cold voice rang out. A young man dressed in noble attire stepped forward. He was Riley Joshua, the seventh son of the prestigious Joshua family. The surrounding knights immediately reacted with surprise. "That's the Joshua family's knights." Ignoring their astonished gazes, Riley swiftly pointed at Bishop Masa and gave a firm command. "Arrest that bishop at once." Without hesitation, the knights behind him nodded and rushed forward, quickly subduing Masa. The old bishop, now restrained, could do nothing but bark out meaningless insults. "Let me go, damn dogs of the Joshua family. How dare you touch me?" Meanwhile, the name, Joshua, stirred something in Isaac's mind. Joshua? Joshua? That name sounds familiar. Where have I heard it before? He wondered to himself. At that moment, Riley turned to his knights. "Show your respect." In unison, all the knights of the Joshua family knelt before Isaac and spoke in one voice. "Greetings, young master of the Joshua family. We apologize for arriving late." Hearing this, Isaac gave Riley a sideways glance, quickly sizing him up. Judging by how serious this guy looks, he's probably even stronger than the royal knights. Unaware of Isaac's inner thoughts, Riley continued speaking. "I can't say this makes up for past mistakes, but here's a small gift I'd like to offer you." As he spoke, he gestured to a knight standing behind him. The knight immediately reached into his coat pocket, as if retrieving something. This piqued our protagonist's curiosity. His anticipation grew. "Is it gold? Is it a gold bar?" Isaac's eyes sparkled with excitement. However, the moment Isaac laid eyes on the so-called gift, he nearly turned to stone on the spot. Because what they pulled out was a miniature replica of his own former skeletal body. The statue depicted a kneeling figure, hands bound in shackles, head bowed as if in repentance, with two swords crossed at the neck in an execution stance. The knight presenting the gift beamed with pride. "This is a model of the execution of the dread King Kone. We even have one where he's being burned at the stake. Or would you prefer the one where he's crushed into pieces? Our young master is absolutely adorable. Oh my goodness, how can he be this cute?" They eagerly shoved the miniature statues toward Isaac, completely oblivious to the fact that his expression was beginning to tremble. And tears of silent agony were welling up in his eyes. Deep inside, he let out a desperate wail. "How am I supposed to survive in a lunatic family like this?" Meanwhile, the knights on the other side saw Isaac's teary eyes and mistook his reaction for overwhelming joy. "Oh no, look at how much he's enjoying it. He's so moved he's crying tears of happiness." Then, as if a switch had flipped in Isaac's mind, the gears started turning. Little by little, he recalled exactly who this Joshua name belonged to. Wait, Joshua? I remember now. That's the name of that saintess who kept trying to defeat me. In that moment, memories from his past life came flooding back, one after another. People calling themselves Joshua had challenged him to battle. I am XO Joshua, the 45th saintess. I am Ox Joshua, the 61st saintess. You are not worthy of knowing my name. Just the thought of that relentless horde of challengers made Isaac clutch his head in frustration. I knew it. They were all from the Joshua family. Damn it, not only am I an applicant for the saint's position, but I've been reborn into a family full of saintesses? What kind of sins did I commit in my past life to deserve this? While Isaac was busy mentally lamenting his fate, the group was suddenly interrupted by the furious screeching of Bishop Masa. Damn you, Joshua family. One of the knights standing behind Rylai immediately tightened his grip on the bishop's restrained arms, warning him in a low voice. How dare you? Keep your mouth shut. But Masa paid no heed to the warning. Like a rabid dog, he kept shouting at the top of his lungs. I knew it. You're all heretics. Where in the devil's name did you even find that creature? I will expose his true identity. I can't believe you dare to bring that monster with you. Has the Joshua family truly rotted to this extent? I will report every last one of you. On the other side, Rylai, clearly reaching the limit of his patience, tightened his grip on his sword. In one swift motion, he swung it forward, the tip grazing the bishop's throat. A thin line of red appeared, followed by a sharp cough as Masa choked on his own blood. However, Rylai had controlled his strike with absolute precision. The cut was deep enough to wound, but not enough to send the bishop to the afterlife. But at the very least, it was enough to shut him up. Masa collapsed to his knees, clutching his throat and wheezing, while Rylai's cold gaze bore down on him. You should be grateful for the mercy of the Joshua family. If not for it, your head would already be rolling on the floor. While Isaac watched Rylai act so decisively, he stroked his chin and nodded in approval. Oh, this guy might actually be useful. He's willing to strike down a bishop just for badmouthing his family. If given a justifiable reason, I bet he'd even attack the Holy See itself. Meanwhile, the knights around them saw Isaac's eyes light up with interest as he watched Rylai punish Masa. Alarmed, they immediately pushed several skeletal figurines in front of him, attempting to distract him. Young master, you don't need to listen to those kinds of words. You only need to see and hear the good things. Isaac glanced at the grotesque skeleton models being tortured and felt an immediate wave of irritation. You bunch of brainless oafs. Get lost. None of you are useful at all. Then suddenly, a thought struck him. Wait a second, Joshua Tonsak, weren't they some of the most powerful enemies in my past life? Not just that, but they were once my subordinates as well. Just thinking about Joshua Tonsak alone is enough to send chills down my spine. On the other side, the knights, thinking they were amusing Isaac, began making exaggeratedly grotesque faces. One of them even yanked the skull off one of the figurines and proudly displayed it. Behold, the severed head of the skeletal demon king. Off with his head, off with his head. Watching the way they were educating him like a newborn child, Isaac could only scream internally. Goddamn it, stop it already. No wonder my former subordinates were terrified. Meanwhile, Emperor Alexander, seeing that Rylai had handled the situation, stepped forward to express his gratitude. I will not forget this favor. On another note, since we're discussing this matter, could you speak with the head of your family about the royal family taking in this child for proper care? To Isaac, the emperor's words were nothing short of a golden ticket to escape from this insane Joshua family. His eyes instantly sparkled with anticipation. Oh my God, the emperor himself is interested in me. He was already fantasizing about his grand escape when, Your Majesty, please don't joke like that. Rylai immediately rejected the proposal. In response, Alexander calmly explained, both internal and external forces of the holy nation will inevitably set their sights on this young master. I assume you've already noticed this, haven't you? Of course, the Joshua family is not weak, But are you truly certain that your current faith in Tansak is strong enough to protect this child? As Rylai spoke on the side, Isaac couldn't quite catch his words. He had no choice but to turn toward Emperor Alexander, waiting to see how the old man would respond. Alexander continued, "Even the Pope refuses to acknowledge this child. He has the same hair color as the founding emperor. And, perhaps even the skeletal demon king is after him." Isaac's eyes went wide. His jaw nearly dropped to the floor. "Wait, what? I'm the skeletal demon king? Why the hell would I be chasing myself?" Unaware of Isaac's internal meltdown, Rylai firmly stood his ground, continuing to reject the emperor's offer. "Apologies, Your Majesty, but since this child is of Joshua blood, we will raise him as a member of our family. Whether it's the Pope or the skeletal demon king, the Joshua family is more than capable of handling them." Then, with a faint but knowing smile, he added, "In fact, I believe that former Saintess Melissa would be absolutely delighted to meet the skeletal demon king again." At those words, Emperor Alexander let out a hearty laugh, recalling the Saintess's infamous temperament. "I have no doubt about that," he mused. Rylai seized the opportunity and pressed further. "Then, how could we possibly agree to entrust the direct descendant of Saintess Melissa to the royal family?" Isaac's perspective. That name, Melissa, rang through his mind like an explosion. A fierce, terrifying figure flashed through his memories. Wait, Melissa? The final enemy I fought before storming the celestial realm? That Melissa? Isaac froze. His pupils shrank as realization set in. The toughest, craziest saintess I've ever faced. Not only was I born into a family of saintesses, but I'm also Melissa's direct descendant. At this point, Isaac wanted to scream to the heavens. What the actual hell is happening to my life? What is a saintess? After countless defeats at the hands of the skeletal demon king, the holy nation sought to create the ultimate weapon. That weapon was the saintess, a divine war goddess of the holy nation, bearing the highest knightly rank. With overwhelming combat power, many believed the skeletal demon king would finally meet his end. Her offense and defense rivaled that of the gods. She possessed an unbreakable survival instinct and attacked with complete disregard for her own well-being. Beautiful, powerful, and immortal through the ages, that was what defined a saintess. The Lich King versus the saints, an endless struggle. However, the Lich King was incredibly powerful. Not a single saint had ever been able to defeat Isaac. In the past, Isaac had never once killed a saint. Taking their lives would only put him at a disadvantage. Why? Because when a saint was slain, all of their holy power would return to the gods, who would then use it to strengthen future saints. Killing them was nothing more than fueling his own enemies. However, the last saint, Melissa, was a completely different story. She was terrifyingly strong. Isaac had barely survived his encounter with her. He had come closer to death under her hands than he ever had before. And now, Melissa turned out to be his ancestor? The more he thought about it, the darker his expression became. If that crazy saint found out about his true identity, just imagining it made his scalp go numb. Meanwhile, Rylai was still cheerfully boasting, completely unaware of Isaac's inner turmoil. The saints exist for one purpose only, to ensure the destruction of the Lich King. The Joshua family is the only bloodline capable of producing saints, and our sole mission is to eliminate anything that dares defy the gods. I have no doubt that the Joshua family is more than capable of protecting this child. Rylai's firm declaration made Emperor Alexander pause, his expression turning contemplative as he mulled over the matter. To further reinforce Rylai's point, a brown-haired knight stepped forward, placing a hand over his chest as he solemnly declared, "That's right. Do you have any idea how many saints have fallen to the Lich King?" Hearing this blatant accusation, Isaac trembled with rage. What the hell? What did I even do? Who did I even touch? Completely oblivious to Isaac's mental breakdown, the knight continued listing off the heinous crimes committed by the Lich King. The Lich King once imprisoned a saint inside his labyrinth, simply because he deemed her unworthy of his presence. Isaac nearly choked on his own breath. What? I let her go? How was I supposed to know she was horrifically bad with directions? The night continued, completely unfazed. 5 saints have died of despair after facing Isaac. Isaac snapped inside his own mind. Bullshit. If anything, they should have checked themselves into therapy. Back to Rilai's perspective, seeing his young nephew struggling so hard to contain his frustration. He chuckled before patting the boy's shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry, there's nothing to be afraid of. Even if you are cursed, we'll do whatever it takes to protect you. His words were filled with affection and worry. If he knew what was truly going on inside Isaac's mind, would he still be able to remain so open-hearted? I'm the one who can't accept this. Keep cursing me all you want. Isaac huffed, his tiny fists pounding against Rilai's chest in frustration. However, rather than getting annoyed, Rilai only found it even more amusing. We should be grateful for your birth. You know, your parents only had one wish for you, to never grow up to be anything like that cruel Lich King. Those words hit Isaac like a bucket of ice-cold water poured straight over his head. His anger instantly vanished, replaced by an overwhelming wave of guilt. Oh, my dear unknown parents, I'm so sorry for completely shattering your little hopes and dreams. He muttered to himself in his heart. Meanwhile, Emperor Alexander, after much deliberation, still wasn't ready to give up on adopting Isaac. He tried once more to persuade Rilai. Rilai, please reconsider. The Lich King was sealed away 150 years ago. Isaac's eyes widened in shock. That long ago? Didn't that mean Melissa had already passed away? The last time he fought her, she was already over 50 years old. There was no way she could still be alive now. Yet before Isaac could process that revelation, Alexander continued, dropping another bombshell that sent our protagonist spiraling even further. During this time, the demon race has been expanding their army. Having a saint in our ranks would be the perfect way to strengthen the Holy Kingdom's influence. That's why this child is so important to the royal family. However, at present, there is no saint from the Joshua family. It has been over a year since the last saint gave birth to this child and then disappeared with her husband. For Isaac, this revelation was nothing short of a thunderbolt straight to the skull. First, finding out he was a direct descendant of Melissa was already enough to make his skin crawl. And now, his own mother was a saint? Back to Rilai's perspective, holding Isaac tightly in his arms, he firmly rejected the offer. Even if my brother is no longer here, the head of our family is still strong. The Joshua family is more than capable of protecting this child. For Isaac, he was completely floored by the situation he found himself in. Yeah, I really don't think anything can shock me anymore. There's no way anything could be more surprising than finding out my mother is a saint. Right? That was what Isaac thought. However, the next part of the conversation between the two men sent every biological alarm bell in his body ringing at full volume. The Emperor asked, "Didn't you say that Lady Melissa is currently on her way to exterminate the Lich King's subordinates?" Rilai nodded in response. "She'll be back soon. The Lady Patriarch will certainly be delighted to meet her grandson." Their words suddenly reminded Isaac of a crucial detail. Saints had unnaturally long lifespans. So the fact that she was still alive wasn't all that shocking. But still, she's been alive for over 200 years? Why the hell hasn't she dropped dead yet? At least, there was still some time before Melissa returned. Wait, why did it feel like his little body was trembling? Is the boy okay? Alexander asked, frowning in concern as he pointed at Isaac. Seeing that, Rilai reached out and patted the kid's head reassuringly. He'll be fine soon. Fine? Fine? If Isaac could speak his mind right now, he'd be screaming at the top of his lungs. You think he'll be fine? When my lifelong nemesis is still alive and kicking. The moment Melissa discovered his true identity, he was done for. She would burn him at the stake. Anybody else, he might have had a chance, but Melissa? She was the last person he saw before he died. If he wanted to survive. At that thought, Isaac decided it was time to sell himself out. Swallowing his pride, he reached out with his tiny hands, grabbing onto the Emperor's index finger and putting on the most adorable expression he could muster. "Your Majesty, please take me with you." As he spoke, he even fluttered his lashes playfully, making the Emperor's face flush with excitement. "Oh, this child, look at that. Even he wants to return to the royal family. Seeing this, Rylai immediately yanked the kid back toward him, shaking his head firmly. He's just a little too friendly. Your Majesty. Up ahead, the Emperor tugged Isaac's arm toward him, making a grand promise. The royal family can offer this child so much more. The Joshua family may specialize in training saints, but they have no experience raising a holy one. On the other side, Rylai wasn't about to back down. He pulled Isaac's arm in the opposite direction, countering with his own argument. This child was destined to become an exorcist knight. No family is better suited to train one than the Joshua family. Your Majesty. Besides, this is the first holy one to ever be born. Doesn't that mean the royal family lacks experience raising one as well? No, the royal family is better. The Joshua family is better. The two men roared at each other before resuming their tug of war, stretching the poor protagonist's body to the point where Isaac was pretty sure his arms had just grown a few centimeters longer. Nearby, the knights watching the spectacle nearly had heart attacks. They hurriedly stepped forward, pleading, "Please, calm down. You'll rip the young master apart." And Isaac? Of course, he wanted to go with the royal family. Anything to get away from this cursed Joshua family. I'm going with the royal family. Stop pulling me. I don't want to die. Besides, there was something else, something that solidified his decision. Light. A sacred light continuously radiated from the emperor, illuminating all life around him. That light, if he stayed with the emperor, his chances of survival would skyrocket. There was no way he was letting go of this opportunity. Isaac glanced toward Uncle Masa, making sure the old man saw his wise decision. Masa's eyes practically sparkled with satisfaction. A wise choice. Now, pick him up, huh? Just as he spoke, a violent burst of holy energy suddenly erupted from Isaac's small body. Even Isaac himself had no idea what was happening. Scene change. Meanwhile, at an undisclosed location, the elderly Bishop Masa was kneeling before a group of shadowy figures in black robes. His voice trembled with disbelief and fear. Impossible. I swear I saw it. That child used mana. I'm certain that boy is the spawn of a demon. A chilling gaze came from the leader of the robed figures. Holy power is a gift granted by God himself. And yet, you're telling me that the demon race has stolen divine power? As those words fell, one of the subordinates behind him understood the unspoken command. With a deliberate motion, he unsheathed a gleaming sword. The sharp ring of metal made the old bishop flinch and stumble backward, panic flashing across his face. But I'm certain it was mana. How could I possibly mistake mana for divine power? The leader, utterly unfazed by his desperate protests, delivered his verdict in an icy tone. The Holy See has reached a final judgment regarding your claim. You stand guilty of blasphemy against God. The moment the words left his mouth, the subordinate wielding the sword lunged forward, slashing clean across Bishop Masa's throat. In an instant, the old man was sent to meet the afterlife. His fate? A so-called sacrifice for the family, just as he had once wished. After swiftly carrying out the execution, the sword-wielding subordinate turned to the leader and proposed, "Shall I gather a team for an attack?" Hearing this, High Priest Hyere merely shook his head. No need. The emperor will take the child with him. Anyway, there will be plenty of opportunities within the royal territory. We'll plan for that instead. His voice dropped into a chilling murmur. This time, that brat will die. Time passed quickly, and the scene shifted back to Isaac. At this moment, he was lying inside a carriage, bored out of his mind as he made his way back to the Joshua family estate. But to understand why, we have to rewind to a few days ago, back to the moment when his body suddenly erupted with a blinding burst of holy light. The sheer intensity of it nearly blinded Isaac, making him instinctively throw his hands over his eyes. Good grief, why is it so damn bright? He groaned. Meanwhile, Rylai, who had been standing nearby, reluctantly admitted something to the emperor. Yes, Your Majesty, the Joshua family isn't exactly the ideal place to raise a child. You see, our estate is practically littered with the corpses of demons. And our most prized possession is the preserved remains of the skeleton demon king himself. Hearing this, Isaac's eyes widened in absolute shock. Wait, what? My body? You guys have it? If he wasn't still an infant, he would have screamed those words out loud. Instead, all he could do was fume internally. Should have told me that sooner. Damn it. The situation was clear. Holy energy was too scarce in the Holy Kingdom, and if he wanted to maintain his strength, he needed access to anything related to demonic energy. That meant getting his hands on his old body. No matter what, even if he didn't want to. Isaac knew he had no choice. With a resigned sigh, he reached out his tiny hand, grabbing Rilai's finger and pointing outward, as if urging him to hurry up and get moving. Uncle, look, let's go to Rilai together. Of course, to everyone else, it just sounded like adorable baby babbling. But somehow, that was enough to make Rilai's eyes well up with tears, touched beyond words. And so, that was how Isaac ended up here. Lying in his tiny crib inside the carriage. He casually crossed one leg over the other. Deep in thought, even if I'm being dragged away from the royal family and thrown into the military, this is my best shot at getting my body back. That body, I cultivated its mana to the point that it could rival the gods themselves. If I don't reclaim it, reaching level 10 won't mean anything. More importantly, this was the first time he had ever seen the light of his own will to survive shine so brightly. If following this old man to Joshua increases my chances of survival, then so be it. Unaware of the thoughts swirling inside the mind of this old soul in a baby's body, a knight sitting inside the carriage suddenly spoke up. Why is the Pope's army after young Master Isaac? Hearing this, the protagonist couldn't help but grow curious, sitting up slightly to eavesdrop. I was wondering about that too. Why are they making such a big deal out of this? He mused. To explain, Rilai cast a glance at Isaac beside him before slowly speaking. It's because we received a prophecy from the gods. They foretold that the Holy One would be born as the child of God. The blonde-haired knight was visibly startled upon hearing this. Piecing things together, he cautiously asked, "Does that mean he's destined to become the next pope?" "That's right. That's why the Barrett family has worked so hard to create a Holy One." Rilai confirmed with a nod. Meanwhile, Isaac, wedged between them, was utterly baffled. The Pope, that's the strongest priest, capable of wielding level 10 holy magic. He's basically the ruler of all clerics and holy knights. In the Holy Kingdom, his authority is nearly on par with the Emperor. For thousands of years, the Barrett family has produced countless popes. So it makes sense that they'd panic if they thought some outsider was about to steal their chosen candidate's place. So that's why every noble family wants to create their own Holy One. The young boy muttered, stroking his chin thoughtfully. However, before he could ponder any further, a commotion suddenly erupted outside, and the carriage came to an abrupt stop. Sensing trouble, Rilai immediately stuck his head out the window and called out, "What's going on?" The coachman hurried over to explain. "Sir Rilai, we've arrived at the duchy. But there's a bit of an issue." As he spoke, the coachman subtly gestured toward the back, where a group of gate guards stood firmly blocking their path. "Apologies, but you're not permitted to enter the duchy." Their words instantly ignited Rilai's temper. "Oh, so a bunch of lowly gatekeepers dared to block the Joshua family?" His voice turned cold as he narrowed his eyes at them. "Do you not recognize the emblem of House Joshua? Did they not bother teaching you basic education?" Up ahead, the guards naturally recognized the emblem of House Joshua. Or rather, they had been waiting for Isaac's group to arrive for so long that they were practically gathering dust. "Of course, you're not getting in," one of them sneered. "We're under orders to eliminate the child carrying the blood of the Holy Maiden." As he spoke, a dense, dark aura began to pour from their bodies. Their fingernails and fangs extended unnaturally, and their skin turned a ghostly shade of violet. Just one look at their monstrous transformation was enough to confirm they were no ordinary humans. From inside the carriage, Isaac peeked out the window to observe the scene. Seeing his own kind, demons, attempting to assassinate their rightful leader left him utterly dumbfounded. "What the hell? I specifically forbade them from attacking human territory. What in the world is that new demon king up to?" he mentally screamed. The scene shifted forward to a towering three-eyed demon at the front of the group. Raising a clawed finger toward Isaac's entourage, he declared with a smug, authoritative tone, "Listen well, you lowly humans. Our revered king has commanded us to exterminate all holy ones. In the name of the Lich Demon King, Lord Isaac himself, we shall wipe out every last one of them. If you leave the child behind, perhaps the great Lich Demon King Isaac will show you mercy." His voice brimmed with arrogance. But before he could finish his grand declaration, a bolt of blue lightning suddenly struck down from above, frying him to a crisp on the spot. Seeing their leader reduced to charred remains, the remaining two demons recoiled in shock. What? That lowly holy knight, one of them stammered. His voice filled with panic. Riley, gripping his sword tightly, stepped forward with unshakable fury in his gaze. "How dare you speak those words to an exorcist knight of House Joshua? So, you've chosen death." His expression darkened as he leveled his blade at them. "Listen well. In the name of protecting every innocent soul in this world, House Joshua will eradicate all evil. We will hunt you to the ends of hell itself and wipe out every last one of your wretched kind, along with that despicable Lich Demon King. I can't believe that bastard is using his own minions to try and reclaim his body." Contempt and scorn were etched across Riley's face as he spat his final words. Hearing those words from Riley, how could the demons possibly hold back any longer? "How dare a lowly human like you? I will not allow you to insult the Lich Demon King Isaac like that. Everything we do is for the sake of reviving our great king, Lord Isaac." The moment those words left his mouth, the enraged demons charged forward in unison. At the same time, the knights tightened their grips on their swords, their bodies enveloped in a protective aura as they prepared to counter the attack. On the other side of the battlefield, the blonde knight, sensing the imminent danger, quickly scooped Isaac into his arms and bolted out of the carriage. "Forgive me, young master," he whispered before picking up speed. Meanwhile, Isaac was still utterly confused about what was happening. "What's going on? Is someone impersonating me or something?" he wondered. The knight carried Isaac deep into the forest before gently placing him inside a thicket for cover. "Please wait here, I'll be back soon." With that, he summoned his energy to cast a protective barrier around Isaac. A barrier? Huh? Even high-ranking nobles wouldn't be able to break through this. Pretty impressive, Isaac mused. Since nothing could penetrate from the outside, that also meant nothing inside could escape. In that case, survival instinct. Activate. Release magic. Hear my call. You who were forged from sorcery yet possess a will of your own, whisper. The observer. At Isaac's command, a dark mist swirled into existence before him, forming a demonic visage. Upon seeing Isaac, the shadowy figure let out an ecstatic cry. "Oh, my most revered king, my master." Before Whisper could utter another word, Isaac swiftly clamped a hand over its mouth. Yeah, long time no see. But shut up unless you want us all to die here." Whisper immediately quieted down, though the glee in its voice remained. "I thought I'd never lay eyes upon your magnificent form again." Isaac let out a small sigh of relief. At least this subordinate of his was still loyal. "I thought I was done for too. It's been a while." Huh? The whisper was merely a scouting spell. It had developed its own consciousness over time. Isaac had originally created it because manually scanning and analyzing magic was too tedious. Over the years, Whisper had even formed a personality of its own, though it was still a chatterbox. On the opposite side, the shadowy figure of Whisper let out a twisted chuckle, taking the opportunity to flatter its master. "Your cruelty remains as magnificent as ever. Congratulations on possessing the body of a child without a shred of guilt. But how dare those filthy creatures do this to my master? Even though you might be a bit underhanded, I still can't believe they forced you into such a disgusting child's body." As Whisper spoke, it floated around Isaac, scanning him curiously. However, its words only made the protagonist more annoyed. "Enough. Just focus on finding our enemies instead," Isaac ordered. "Understood. I'll begin immediately." With that, Whisper expanded its search field to a radius of 100 meters. A faint energy pulse emanated from its form, spreading outward in all directions. Moments later, vivid images flooded into its consciousness. There are 88 enemies. All of them are monsters. But of course, such lowly beings could never compare to you, my most esteemed master. Whisper beamed as it delivered the report. But Isaac wasn't smiling at all. What the hell? Have these monsters gone insane? Wait, 88 of them? Are they really planning to start a war? If a full-scale battle breaks out, summoning my subordinates will become even more difficult. Isaac clicked his tongue in frustration. Damn it, if things continue like this, I'll have to take care of this mess myself before the Joshua family finds out. Even if it means exhausting all the mana I've painstakingly accumulated. Just the thought of depleting his hard-earned magical reserves sent a shudder through Isaac's body. However, before he could act, Whisper's glowing eyes widened in shock. Huh? Master, the number of enemies is dropping rapidly. There are only 51 left now. No, wait, 31, now, 13. The sudden shift in the situation left Isaac staring blankly, his small mouth hanging open in disbelief. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the brown-haired knight at the rear sensed something approaching and quickly shouted. Sir, something is coming. Hearing this, Rylai immediately gave the order. Everyone, form a defensive line. Prepare for impact. On the other side, the demon clan seemed to recognize the approaching presence as well. Instead of fear, they burst into laughter. Finally, he's here. Brother, let's do this together. Today, we'll kill that so-called saint. Just as those words left their mouths, a golden-haired demon was suddenly impaled by a violent surge of energy. His body torn in half in an instant. The sight left the holy knights in stunned silence. Meanwhile, Whisper gleefully announced, no enemies left. I've located the Dark Lich. At that moment, the Dark Lich turned his blazing gaze toward Rylai's group, his voice filled with fury. How dare you lay your filthy hands on my king? You will all pay with your lives. His words sent a chilling wave across the battlefield. But Isaac, watching from afar, could only stare blankly, completely at a loss. What the hell is wrong with this subordinate of mine now?